Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Gnomon live stream. I am your host, Adam Hartel, and I want to thank you for joining us for tonight's event, Behind the Scenes, The Croods, A New Age. So before I get to our fantastic guests, they're going to be with us and introduce them to you, I just want to let you know that we're very thankful that Lenovo, powered by NVIDIA, sponsored this event. Lenovo helps us to continue to bring educational events for free to you, and it's been wonderful to be able to continue to do this throughout quarantine in our live streams. And this live stream is also going to be added to our catalog. It'll be available to watch on our Twitch and YouTube channels in video on demand after the event concludes. And all of our events, including this stream, are available with closed captioning via Facebook Live. So you can find our link on the Facebook page channel in the chat. And with that, let's get to our guests tonight. So first off, I would like to introduce to you Ronnie Cleland, and he is a look development supervisor at Pixar. I apologize, guys. I just got quarantine brain there for a second. For the last 15 years, Ronnie has been involved with the look development and creative departments in VFX and animation studios. He loves the creation process and thrives off of team collaboration. He's always been inspired by visual details, so it's only natural that he established himself in the look dev surfacing department. From concept to creation, the name of the game and look dev has allowed him to participate with almost all spectrums of production. Also joining us tonight is Leticia Gillett, and she is character modeling supervisor at Walt Disney Animation. Leticia is a 3D model. Hey, Ronnie, thanks for jumping in.
Hello.
How are you doing, sir? I'll just stop and say hello for a moment. Sorry for the glitch in my brain there at the beginning, but it's fantastic to have you here with us tonight. Let me get Leticia up on the screen. So yeah, as I mentioned, Leticia is a character modeling supervisor at Walt Disney Animation. She's a 3D modeler and texture artist with a focus on bringing characters to life. Before coming to the US, Leticia worked in Brazil with ArcViz in commercial houses as a 3D generalist and taught for 3 years on the subjects of ArcViz and 3D character creation. Leticia moved from Brazil and followed her dreams of studying at Gnomon School of Visual Effects. And after finishing the school, Leticia worked for various studios, including Disney's consumer products, Blizzard Entertainment as a 3D character artist on Overwatch, DreamWorks as a 3D modeler, and Netflix Animation as a character development artist. Today, Leticia lives in Los Angeles with her husband and her strange cat, Mia, and her crazy dog, Sadie, currently working at Walt Disney Animation Studios as a character modeling supervisor. And lastly, I'd like to introduce Courtney Chun. Hey, Leticia. She's a texture and look development artist. Courtney grew up in Honolulu, Hawaii. She moved to Los Angeles in college, where she decided to pursue a career in CG and feature animation. She has worked at the Third Floor and DreamWorks Animation. And yeah, let's welcome Courtney to the stream. There we go, guys. All right. So you guys are here to share with us about kind of the amazing creative wild ride that you've had working together on the Croods. And also want to let our chat know that, guys, you can bring your questions. Go ahead and type them in the chat. My colleague Miranda, who's moderating the chat tonight, will send those questions through to me. If we have a chance to bring them up in context of the presentation, we will. And we'll definitely allow some time towards the end to be able to bring up those questions. So, guys, thank you very much for being with us. I will just hop in the sidecar now. I'll pass the mic to the three of you, and go ahead and take us out.
Thank you, Adam. I know one thing. I think the glitches came from hearing that reel because I had chills. So that's where all that came from. Thank you, Gnomon.
That's a good Gnomon reel.
Yeah, it was. Very satisfying. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, welcome, everyone. Hi. We're going to start with modeling first. I'm going to show some fun stuff for modeling, and then we'll roll around to the look world. Okay, let me get my share screen. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, there you go. We do.
Yeah, cool. So, in my time at DreamWorks, I worked as a modeler, not just for characters. I did some environments and stuff, but mainly I did on Croods characters. And for those of you who did watch the movie, I was in charge of some of the characters for the main family, the new family, I mean, which I worked on this guy here. His name is Phil. I should be using a pen. Wait a minute. And I work on this girl here. Oops, why it's not working? I don't know. This girl here, her name is Dawn. So pardon I'm doing with the mouse. So I was very early in the show, which was fun. Like I was doing these characters with mainly the process of making characters in most studios would be you have a concept, you work hand by hand with a concept artist where you do like sort of like a rough to fine. So we do sort of like a rough exploration of the character. And as you can see here, this is sort of like some of, it's not so rough, but this is some of early explorations where like things are not super defined, as you can see, like, you know, like I'm just like putting stuff there so we can start moving things around and finding the character. So it's a beautiful collaboration between concept and modeling, where we're trying to push it even further, whatever is done in 2D to the 3D world, right? Another cool thing we do is we normally work in pose, just because when you put your characters in pose, you get the essence of their character much more if I had this character sort of like in an A pose or whatever. So a lot of times in this early exploration phase, we're not so concerned about we can break anything to find the character. And then we reconstruct back everything, you know. So this is one of my favorite phases of the modeling part, which is like early exploration. You really feel like you pushing and pulling stuff. And then after that, you got to go to more the technical side of it, I would say, where you got to put the model back into A pose or T pose for production, right? Production quality sort of thing. So with these two characters, it was very fun because they have I would say design-wise, their language, it's super interesting to me. Like they're so different. So it was nice to kind of jump from one to the other sort of thing and play with shapes. And Phil, for those of you who watched the movie, he's super sort of like expressive with his body and stuff. So it was so fun to see him be animated and make the production model for that as well. Okay, so this is sort of like for the main family. The next one is this, because Croods has a lot of funny plants, funny creatures, right? They're from the Crudation time. I think that's how it says, right? So yeah, so it's sort of like a mix of some animals that exist on that specific Croods time. So this guy, for example, he's a pig gator. It's part pig, part alligator. And again, like, you know, with characters that are like this, we don't push so much the pose because they'll be shorter in time that we can work with. But it's still like so fun to do. And again, same process. Like I will play with the shapes without worrying too much. And then later on, I'm going to do a very big cleanup pass to make the model production ready, right? We have this guy here, a little look. So this is with look already. So this is my model. And then we gave to a look artist and they do their magic there, right? And make this guy feel very pinky and cute. So the magic, yeah, and I could potentially say that the same hand-to-hand communication that concept needs to have with modeling to make the 3D model work so well, modeling needs to have with rig, which for those of you who don't know what rig is basically imagine they're putting a bone structure to your character so they can be animated later. So a lot of times When I get to the part where I take this model to make it to production, I need to work a lot with the rig department so we can see if the movements are working well, if we need more or less topology, etc. Also, at the same time, we modelers, we need to work very close to the look department, which is going to talk very soon, which is like we need to know what they need from us as what is going to be modeled, what is going to be made in look. So there is a lot of a balance there. There's certain things that could be not necessarily, for example, if you see these scales here that he has, it would be a nightmare to model this in the topology, but look can solve those sort of things for us, and they can iterate on that. So it's much easier to consider that in the look pipeline than in a model, than modeling. Here's a little turnaround of Dawn. So again, this is from a look pass. You can see that you can see the difference between the look pass and my pass, right, in modeling. So if I go back a few moments here, let me just open here actually. You can see the difference, right? Put like this. You can see the difference. Like this is just the ideation of what this piece could potentially be. But then when it gets to look, that's when the magic happens, right? When they start adding like nuances and weathering and all that fun stuff. So it's super awesome to see what they do with our characters. This is Phil. So this is sort of like a test where he's just like, oh, whatever, you know. And everything in the world per se is perceived by light, right? Like every shape we see, we need lights for it. So that's why it's so important in modeling. You have good lights when you model. You have a good light rig, for example, like something like this that's very sort of like ambience is, there's not a lot of color bouncing or anything. It's just a good light for you to perceive the shapes of your model. This is so important because sometimes if you don't do that, when it goes to look and they add lights and they add shading and materials, it can look pretty different. And you know, so my suggestion for you modelers out there is like really have a decent light rig to check your models, you know, that's very important. Yeah, so this is our guy here. I already showed that. Let me go next. So here's some close up on his face. So as you can see, you know, some things when it comes from modeling and goes to look, if you see here, you see like everything is geometry here, right? So it's more graphic, but when it goes to look, that's when it gets life in a way because it's not so graphic anymore. It has a little more personality to things. So, you know, it's a big kind of jump for the better, I would say, you know.
Yeah, also Leticia, like showing off the poses in general, you know, how much that's a huge help for just in daily showing the stuff off from modeling the look dev, you know, for us back in the day when we were just working with T poses. And then now looking at these poses here, it's night and day, right?
Right. So yeah, that's very important. So the poses we do in modeling is not just to help modeling or help directors approve the model, but again, like Ronnie said, it moves to other departments to support them to put look, to put other things, and always keep that character alive, not in that weird A pose sort of thing.
Yeah.
Cool. And then here's some we call calisthenics test, where it's imagine that your character, you want to have some expressions, you want to see his hands. So look does this sort of thing so we can see like, oh, what's going on inside his mouth? Is it a good color? What about his teeth and tongue? And for the hands, same thing, right? You're kind of checking what's going on there. With our model, see the deformation close up. I love how DreamWorks, they did the calisthenics, which is this sort of test with a lot of character. Like the more character you can add in the beginning, instead of waiting for animators to touch it, it's the better, right? Because you finding the character, the earlier you find, the more you can break those rules and test different fun things that you can do with the character. So
closer you can get to the final product, right? Showing people what it will be like on screen.
Right. And especially for this guy, like he's so expressive in the movie and everything. So it's so fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I love these.
And this is the pig gator, but this is the mama version. Well, it could be the papa version, but I say that it's the mama. But here's her taking a little walk, having fun in life. How do I look this? Repeat. Here you go. Check it out. So again, like they could in look just put this spinning without animation, but when you add the animation, it just brings everything to life. It's almost like everything connects in a way. So I love when we show things animated this way. And we did a lot of that on Croods, which was awesome.
Yep.
Let's see what else. How are we doing on time? We good?
I think so.
Yeah. This one is like I don't even know if you guys noticed this animal on the movie, but it's very quick beginning of the scene. It just like goes by. But I wanted to put it here because this is a good example. And unfortunately, I don't have the render of just the model. But this model is literally just a tube with this fin thing. But this is like what look can do to anything. It's crazy. There's literally a tube with a fin, and look can create this whole idea of complexity in it that it does not exist in the model at all. So pretty cool. And I put here also because it's cute and colorful. So awesome. This is another guy I did. You can see the difference when you see things spinning without animation. It's just like, yeah, it's cool, but then when you see animated, it's so fun. So this is an example of a model for the punch monkeys on the movie. What else could I say about this one?
I mean, it's just a hybrid of everything, right? We fell in love with creating these characters and different creatures in this way because nobody would ever see them out and about, you know? So there was so much creative freedom with all this.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see what's next. So this is one of my favorites, right, that I had the chance to work on, which is the wolf spiders. And this was so fun again because this was a huge collaboration between Motley and Rig, where we're like figuring out how we're gonna spread the legs and stuff. So the riggers would even do quick animations on it before even going to animation, just sort of like test and stuff. And this little guy here, like I don't have the model for this, but it's like a tube full of fur. It's not anything crazy, but like there was a complexity on this character because obviously he has six eyes. So Rig had to play with it, and the topology, even if you think technically, like the eyes are so close to each other, so it ended up being dense because of the amount of eyes in one area, right? So that was kind of fun, sort of challenge to figure it out, how to make it all clean and cute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites.
Yeah, mine too.
Here we have the mom. So here's more like the spider pose, and then it becomes a dog. I love it. Let me play this again just because it's so good. Let's do it again. Yeah. So she comes. And then, ka-ching, the puppy. Yeah. So this is so cool. And again, like a lot of collaboration with Rig and Look as well, because as you can see, it's all fur. So when we're looking at the model without fur, just imagine this model without fur is not so appealing, right? So the moment the sooner we pass this to look and they start adding some fur, you can kind of see much better the potential of the character, a lot of furry characters, especially with long fur like this, sometimes in modeling what I do is just like I block some fur so I can get the feeling of the character. But at the end, with a product that you give, it's almost like a naked version, like shrinked version of it. Cool. This is another one. It's just it's the same model basically, but with a different look treatment on it. So I think there's like 3 or 4 variations of look treatment on this exact same model. Just fun. So I really like this, guys, and cool stuff. Yeah, I think this is it for me to show. These are kind of the main characters I worked on. I worked some props and environment stuff, but I'm a character modeler. I like to show characters. But yeah, I mean, if we have a few minutes, Adam, if you want to throw any questions, or if you want to move on along to the next person, and then we can do questions later.
Actually, we had a couple of questions come in. Hi guys, I decided to slide in here, and yeah, a couple of questions came in during the context of what you were sharing, Leticia. One viewer was asking, how do you deal with wrinkle details on faces for animation? Model wireframes I've seen don't look that dense, so they're wondering about areas around the nose when making an angry face and that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, it depends on the studio that you work on. Some studios, they do that sort of thing in the rig itself, meaning you have a dense mesh, but the rigger is the one who is going to control when the eyes are squint, if it's going to trigger some edges or not. If you have a wrinkle that is always there, let's say you have a character that you have a wrinkle, there's always a wrinkle on the forehead, you definitely need to model that in, so I would say any wrinkle that is active on the character the whole time, the modeler needs to take care of how that wrinkle behaves. If there's any wrinkle that's going to be activated when some expression happens, that's something that the rigger in general, it's going to control on the rig, like how those edges are going to be in or out,
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
Yeah, totally. And then another viewer wanted to know if you got involved with any of the conceptual ideas with these characters. Did you have permission to change some things, to match in what you were doing?
Well, as a model, you always have the room to suggest, right? So if you're doing something, let's say I'm doing something and I think maybe the eyes could be 5 to 10% bigger, or the beard or whatever. What I like to do as a modeler is that I duplicate the model, I do the changes I think is best, but it always is always a collective decision. Like the art director, the concept artist, we all need to be on the same page. So sometimes the suggestions are taken, like, oh yeah, this is great actually, I never thought of this way, and then they do it. Sometimes it's like, nah, let's stick to the concept, and that's totally fine, And that's something that it depends on the modeler. Like, I like to suggest stuff a lot with my own ideas of design, but I always do in a separate model if there is room for that kind of conversation. If there's not, then the model is not yours. This is a collective art, which a bunch of hands are going to touch. So you got to remember that in production, that this is a collective vision. It's not your vision.
Mm-hmm. Are you primarily working off of are you receiving like 2D concepts to work with in the beginning? So, I mean, there is a little bit of design just interpreting 2D to 3D as well.
Yes.
Which I think a lot of people forget. Yeah.
Sure. People a lot of times forget that, a 2D drawing lines are very different than form, right? So when you find in the form, sometimes the lines, they do not correspond one-to-one to the form. So there is an interpretation that you got to do. But I would say like big design changes, you got to suggest. And if it passes, it passes. If not, you move on with your life, because again, this is a product of many. It's not your
Yeah.
product.
Absolutely. And I love these little animation tests. It almost looks like it was this character's audition tape to be able to be on the show. And the last question that came in is along those lines for you. They just want to know if the rigs for these characters were entirely custom, or were there some procedurally used rigs?
Well, I think, and you guys can correct me, but I think DreamWorks every rig is done from scratch. Obviously, there's some things that they might copy on code and stuff, but I think, especially at DreamWorks, because the characters are so unique and different, I think everything is done from scratch. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, this kind of hybrid form, these new shapes, new characters, creatures, whatever. It's definitely something new out of the box. Anyway, we couldn't even do anything new or copy anything from Croods 1, because it was so long ago. So yes, like she's saying, we would be using stuff that we could copy every now and then from rigging or whatnot. But this is definitely not one of those movies. I guarantee you every rigger did something completely different for everyone.
Yeah, they're so unique, I would say. They're very pushed, and they're all creatures, which you can't, maybe you could potentially start with the biped or with the quadruped, but then start editing very fast everything. So I'm pretty sure it's from scratch, yeah.
Yeah, and I think some of the beauty of the animation coming out of DreamWorks is that that nothing feels samey about the way that any of the characters move, right? So there is that sense of even the rigging, right, speaks to the story and the character and how they need to behave. Yeah,
and especially on this movie, I feel like the performance of the characters, we got to give a lot of credit for the animators because they have so unique personalities. And it's just beautiful. I feel like what they did on this movie. Yeah.
And then before we move forward, just one housekeeping thing. I think I'll just stay in with my webcam because I can't speak to you unless I'm in camera on the stream. That way, if you've got any questions about time or just anything you need my help with, I'll just be here. And then a question I meant to ask off the top, were you guys all shoulder to shoulder at the same time at DreamWorks when you're working on this project? Awesome. Okay.
We were. I was always telling Courtney, nah, do it again. Start over. No, I'm joking. But yeah, it was awesome being around them. And I know I have a special relationship with Courtney because she took my class when I was teaching in Gnomon. So, I wanted to make her feel welcome at the studio, yada, yada. But yeah.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, we're on the same floor too. So it's a couple steps away. So we try to keep in contact.
So this is a reunion of sorts then.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Well, I'll let you guys continue. I'm here if you need my help, and I'll bring up questions when the time is right.
Awesome. So if there's any more questions for Molly, I'll pass over to Courtney, and she will show her magic.
I think there are a few questions that I see in the chat, but I don't know if.
If there's anything, and I realize that you guys as guests, the way that our streaming platform works, our guests can't necessarily type directly into any of the streaming platforms. So I would say, guys, because this is your event, if you see anything that catches your eye that's coming in on the chat, you can feel free just to answer directly on the stream. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Well, I guess I can answer Curtis's question about whether or not we're using what we're using for fur. We're not allowed to talk about the software that we use at DreamWorks, but we do have a proprietary grooming software that is node based in terms of creating fur. So I mean, when I was at Gnomon, all I knew was XGen, and it more or less translated over fine, especially if you know things like Nuke, and just like Houdini in general are also great programs. Just node-based programs really helped me when getting into the DreamWorks workflow. But I hope that answers that question on, okay, he said understood. Okay, so
do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, I'll share my screen.
I'm going to stop sharing now.
Yeah, a lot of the more finite and specific stuff is more DreamWorks proprietary, and we're still working with third-party tools, but they like to refine their own tools too.
Oh, I don't know if this is a question for you, Leticia, but Octavio asked, can you explain the color palette for Croods? Or maybe Ronnie?
How much do you know about the whole story of the film before? Wait, which one?
Octavio.
Sorry. The color palette of film, I don't think that's, I don't think I can explain it because it kind of goes through different ways, but the graphic nature of what is expected from art direction and the model style specifically is definitely up in the air. And what this whole show was based on was the Croodsy, off the kind of beaten path kind of new graphic style with its own little look. And that was solidified on Croods 1. So we picked up on that and went with it. And the color palette kind of evolved during the film. So what you see on the screen wasn't exactly what we expected, but a lot of the art department and a lot of the artists at the beginning made sure to lock into something that they knew was going to be appealing, and we just tried to match it.
I remember the art director just wanted Croods to look entirely like crazy colorful.
Yeah.
I remember we would kind of joke and surfacing about how it's almost like someone just like threw up like a rainbow all over the screen because everything was just like super saturated, super crazy, which is, I guess, not like your norm, not your average color palette for a film.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just kind of wacky.
And another one, Courtney, off of that is like, there were multiple versions of this movie. So yeah, it's like, where do we go?
Yeah, so I don't know if you guys can see my screen.
Now
okay.
we can.
Yeah, we got it.
Great. Okay, so I actually graduated from DreamWorks in 2018. So I just jumped right into Croods 2 without kind of too much experience beforehand, and I wanted to show the first thing that I worked on, which is the Mousefin, which unfortunately did not make it into the film, but he made it into the art book.
And it made it into the Gnomon live stream!
Yes!
Yeah, exactly. Well, so I didn't do, so this is Mousefin from the first film. And with Croods, the art director wanted to do more of like a cutesy version of Mousefin here. So this is the art that I was given, and this is kind of what I came up with. And this was literally my first time going in using the grooming tools that we talked about was a challenge. Just doing like a full creature, because I think I'd only done that maybe like once at my time at Gnomon, and I have a still here, a spin here. And one of the things that I think really helped was at Gnomon, I know we're very like creature driven and people like those, weird, scary, creepy stuff. And translating, sometimes you don't think that that's going to translate well to maybe like a really cute and stylized creature, but it can actually make it more realistic in a way and kind of ground it a little more in reality. So shout out to Miguel Ortega, my demo reel instructor, but I used his trick of sweet potato texture to kind of get this like skin, creepy, veiny skin looking thing going on with the subsurface between his ears. And even just if you look at the horns here, there's a lot more detail than, just like one color and just like a roughness pass. Like there's a lot more, there's like some stripe variation and some dots and all that stuff. So you can definitely kind of translate all the things that you learn all the way through Gnomon into kind of like any project you do. So that's Mousefin. And then I also, so I can show Narwhalrus was also a cute one that I worked on. This guy. And he was also fun because he had a very subtle fur going along his body, and we wanted to make him look a little bit, I guess with seals, he's supposed to be a walrus. Like, actually, I don't even know what the two things he was supposed to be. He's like a seal plus like a narwhal.
Yeah.
I don't. But anyway, so he they wanted like that seal shine on his back, and so we kind of had to play around with. DreamWorks has this great tool to allow kind of like a fuzz going on here, so you can see along certain areas, like the outline here, he's getting like a darker looking fur, and that's all kind of like lighting based, depending on like the way that he's viewed by the camera. And then here's a quick. This is the art. So Nate Ragg was the art director, and it was neat because I got to really just jump in right away on characters and work directly on the surfacing that the art director was kind of doing the art for already. So DreamWorks was definitely, they trusted they trusted me, like coming straight out of school.
I told them to do it. I said trust Courtney.
It's definitely a nerve-wracking process because especially just like getting into like a big pipeline within the studio, and I think when you're like a generalist, you don't really. I know when I was at Gnomon, I kind of would just try to make something like look like a pretty picture half the time, and that would kind of bite me in the back of the butt, because when I was like, oh, if I need to do a spin, like that looks really bad in that one area. So I definitely had to kind of like tone down those bad habits when I finally got into the the studio atmosphere. But what was also funny, I have this clip from the film with Narwhalrus as well. So he looked super cute in the stills and with all the posing that modeling did and all that stuff. But he was so derpy. He looked so funny in the actual film. So when I was watching it, we were laughing about it because he he just kind of totally looks different than what we were initially planning, but I don't know what happened along the way.
It's I think the eyes.
Yeah, it's
like
just
that.
those eyes, like they're half lidded like that.
Googly eyes.
Yeah.
And Courtney, every time we show this stuff too, whenever it gets into dailies or whatever, if it's moving, it's like you've textured something that's completely different. Like, oh my God, you fall in love with it.
Exactly. Yeah, even where is it?
That's my boy Phil.
So just even seeing, like them in their different poses here, they look totally different than, they did in that spin that I showed before. But yeah, that was definitely Balsafin and Narwhal were probably like my top characters that I enjoyed. And I also worked on Land Shark, which is this guy here. And this was definitely a fun challenge because so like Leticia was saying before, sometimes the models, they just kind of have the general shape, but there's no, there's no way you can model in like these little raised bump areas on him. So I really went in, and in a sculpting program, I took let me see if I have the art. Okay, so this was the art, and I literally just projected this texture on and sculpted the little like indents over here out.
This one turned out really nice, Courtney.
Yeah, this one I was surprised. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
One thing also, right, Courtney, sometimes like you do a look on a certain light and then the movie is lit in a different way, and it just changes everything sometimes. It's nice to even on here you can see a different scenario, and you just you always need to know that things are gonna look different than what you do.
Yeah. And also, as you're both saying, it's like you can't really fall in love with, you know, everything about the process. You know, what, like Leticia said at the beginning of this, there is that process. You're passing this information on. You know, it's for an ultimate big grand scheme of things and products. So,
Right.
you know, don't noodle it like you are with the Gnomon reels, like we did in the past.
Yeah, because when you're a Gnomon, you have ownership of everything, right? So it's fine for you to get attached, but in production, the people that get attached are the ones that suffer the most during production because they want a certain thing, but it's not the collective vision, you know. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that that's something that, I mean, just look at Mousefant. Like I really, like, it was the first character I worked on and I put like all my heart into it, and he's like not even in the film. And I'm happy that we get to share him here, because I mean, like, you guys are probably the only people that'll ever see this stuff.
I feel like Mousefant needs like a little like spin-off short or something.
He needs his own
like,
movie.
Yeah.
They loved how cute he was. I remember everybody loved him, and we were thinking like, oh, he was gonna have like a plush toy and be really cute, but I don't know. It's just, I don't know why I didn't make it into the film. And we even had like some of our friends who were working on like environments. See some of the comments.
Release the mouse.
Some of them try to sneak the Mousefant into shots, and then when we would have like dailies, they'd be like, "What is that? Like, get that out of there!"
It's in
like,
there.
oh.
Damn it.
Yeah, I don't know why he didn't make it.
But no Mousefants died or were injured during the production of.
Never.
Yeah.
And so I also worked on this plant creature. I wasn't even really sure if it was really a creature or just a plant. It's supposed to be like one of those like Venus flytrap looking things. And so here's the art that I was given, and I tried to match it exactly here. And with surfacing a lot, I think what I learned the most about taking, you know, like someone's artwork that they've done and being able to kind of translate certain things. Like I had a really difficult time initially with these flowers here, because if you look at the art, if you look at the art here, I was like, well, they kind of look like they're glowing. You know, like, do I add like iridescence or what do I do? And you know, we just kind of, through dailies and just kind of trying new things, I just kind of used like a velvet type of shader on it to make it soft but not super translucent like this, which wasn't the exact look that we were thinking in the end. And then even subtle, like I remember Ronnie came over and he told me he had constructive criticism about adding more of like an increased speck detail along here. Just, yeah, like getting that breakup in certain parts. And that definitely made it look a lot better. So thank you. Thank you, Ronnie.
That's not how I remember. I remember him saying start over. Well, that's okay if you want to make him look like a nice guy.
No, Ronnie would never.
OT for Courtney.
But and then I also have Plantosaurus. So the thing about, I spent a long time on Plantosaurus as well, but when you catch him here, you really just see him for this slight bit and then he's just gone. And it's, you know, you spend so much time on something that really doesn't get a lot of screen time. So you definitely learn not to get too attached. And also kind of, I guess what we were talking about before, what Leticia mentioned, is that the lighting can make the characters look so different. And, you know, like even here you lose some of the speck detail. You don't fully get to see it. So, I mean, I think in the end, it wasn't the hugest deal, but that's something that, you know, I was kind of bummed out about when I saw the final cut of it, because I remember like I worked so hard on putting that in, and it unfortunately, like doesn't really get seen. And then I can show, so the monkeys were pretty crazy to work on. So I think about 3 variations of the monkeys, and they all kind of started, so Punch Monkey was the main monkey, and he was in the first film. And then one of the artists did like the groom and the texture, and then I kind of took his groom and his texture and applied it to all these different variations, and they had like totally different models, different UVs, and you do kind of have to start from scratch in a way, but also try to implement the same tells or the same things that the art director liked about Punch Monkey into these newer monkeys. So Bite Monkey was one, and then Kick Monkey was another. Kick Monkey was pretty simple because he's basically the same except for these giant, these huge feet right here. And even just adding simple things in like the scratch detail here on like his paw pad, just subtle things that, I mean, I don't really think you even see in the film, but we still added it in anyway.
We know it's there, right?
Yeah. And then Tail Monkey is virtually like Punch Monkey, except he just has a super long tail. And this was really fun to do that tail there. And then I have this other clip of Tail Monkey too. And getting, I think the most satisfying part as well is, so when you texture, of course, you texture in like a T-pose, and they don't look all that fun. And then when you actually get to render them out in a pose, it's really neat to kind of see them come alive, like what Leticia was talking about before, how they just look so different in a pose. And I don't know, I hope you guys have all seen the movie, but the monkeys were probably my favorite to work on just because they were so heavily featured in the Thunder Sisters clip here. And I think this was my favorite part of the movie just because it was so unusual. Like I don't think I could picture seeing this in any other film, but Croods was kind of like that wacky film that the director wanted it to be. And this was just a lot of fun to finally see when Croods got released.
Yeah, that's my favorite part too.
Yeah.
I could be way off here, but I feel like that one sort of tiger that we see in the screen right now, I feel like there's a little bit of a nod there to Cringer from He-Man, some of the coloration. Yeah. I don't know if that was intentional, but like I'm getting nostalgic feelings.
Yeah, it was definitely, I mean, even like my background here, I guess we can watch the end of this. I love that part with Thunk. Bog water. But even like my background here was done by an artist, and he's totally channeling like the Frank Frazetta, that type of art. So it was all just it was such a neat like wacky movie to work on.
Yeah, and Courtney, we're talking about the color palette thing, knowing that it kind of came down to the end, still figuring it out. That they had the creative freedom and willingness to change it all up, and this ended up changing more to this art style because they were like, well, this will probably look better, and it did. So it wasn't like starting the film and saying this is a color palette. It's allowing everybody to start contributing to it whenever they feel the feeling is right.
Totally agree.
And that piece in the background, were you saying that was sort of a visual development illustration?
Yeah, this was done by an artist. I don't know like at what point. Like I don't know if they were like, they just saw this and they were like, we're gonna totally throw this in the film, or like how that kind of worked.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So these tree flies here, this is a still from the film, and they wanted, the model was really quite simple, but they wanted to do kind of this like stained glass effect and have like the light coming through their wings. So what was interesting and what we talked about before, like with lighting, is that these don't look, all that crazy or neat. I personally feel like in these turntables, like, there's there's not a whole lot going on to me, but then once you see it in the shot, and that lighting just kind of hits the wings the right way. And of course too, there's, you know, like visual effects put in after the fact. Oh, P.S. Ronnie did all this environment. But seeing, you know, how the light works in the scene is definitely, you know, like it totally changes the way that a character looks, especially when you're doing things like subsurface and really light-based rendering things.
Yeah, and that daily specifically, Courtney, everybody, it was either silence or
I know dailies is so nerve-wracking sometimes because I think it's, I don't know what, when I was at Gnomon, I always felt like when I showed my work, I wasn't super nervous about it. But then at dailies, you know, you're sitting there and you're like, oh my God, they're going to hate it. Like, and, you know, sometimes they're like, oh, like, you know, maybe you need to like change this thing. And you're like, okay, they didn't hate it that much. And then sometimes they really love it, or sometimes it's silent. Just kidding.
I want to say a note about Gnomon. When I was at Gnomon, my teacher for my last classes was Alex Alvarez, the owner of Gnomon. And I was so damn nervous every time because I was like, this guy knows everyone. I need to impress this guy as much as I can. So I was like literally 2 hours of sleep from the previous night. And then we go to class and show stuff to him. My hope was just he would say like, yeah, that's okay. I'm like, yes, I can sleep tonight.
I see Alex commented in the chat. Like, I guess I can answer this question right here. So dailies are just, it's basically like the same thing like at Gnomon where you go in and you just show your work. And so to like the art director and everyone on your team. And I think on Croods we had dailies. Well, it wasn't really daily, it was bi-weekly. But sometimes dailies can be just like every single day, which is technically what dailies means.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why we called it dailies, even though we met. It was only twice a week.
That's true. I didn't even think about that until you just said it. Yeah. But just a review session, you know? And yeah, like you're saying, it could be more at the end of the show every day.
And so the last things that I can show are, so I did, what was also really neat is I got to touch main characters by doing variants. So this was Dawn's swollen hand after she gets that bee sting post joyride. And this was pretty weird because the hand was just like a balloon. And then the way that it was a little bit difficult because rigging wanted it to, you know, just be like a sphere around her hand, and then the fingers were just kind of like suction cups attached to her hand. And I don't know here. So here's a good still. You can kind of see how the suction cups kind of came off her hand like that. But
who modeled this?
Was it you?
Yeah. Say it.
No, it was. I'm not saying anything about the mod. Just saying that. I mean, it was rigging that definitely wanted it that way. I know that we were kind of in surf. We were a little bit like, oh well, you know, because I think what was happening was they wanted the fingers to kind of. Here I can show this clip. They wanted the fingers to slide around, and I was like, well, that's not really, you know, gonna look super great if, you know, your texture is going to be like moving around everywhere. So that was something that we kind of had to think about and work on. And I think we did end up doing some paint fixes. So in some really like up close shots, they were able to see that we're able to see the suction cups in comp. They were able to kind of like tone. Yeah. So you can see here in this close up of her hand that they got rid of that suction cup looking part. But yeah, this was really weird to work on. It was
weird to model too.
I know, it's just like a big like sphere around her head. It's just like a little balloon thing.
All for the joke.
Yeah, all for the lamps.
I do have to say though that there were several times where I got amazing UVs, and I asked Leticia if it was her that worked on it, and I think sometimes it was, and I applauded you for that because you don't at DreamWorks the surfacers don't do the UVs; it's the modelers that have to do it. And in modeling, you guys are so busy; it's like half the time you're just trying to UV super fast and get stuff done. So I definitely appreciated the times when we didn't have to kind of go in and look at the UVs and maybe adjust something. So not to say that. Thank you. And so then the last thing that I'll show is I did the weathered variants for Grug, Guy, and Phil. And so, I mean, it was really just like a super simple putting dirt all over them. And I did have to adjust the groom on Grug's pelt because so Grug's pelt normally it has two, it's like full, it's on both sides. And then I had to adjust the groom because the polys were very different on this other pelt. So I really, I kind of just took like what other artist did and saved what I could and, reworked in the rest of the fur as best that I could. And then here's Guy's weathered variant. So and here he is like a black guy. So I think actually in the film he doesn't ever appear in that weathered variant. So that's, like again, something you work on that doesn't get seen. And then just here's Phil's weathered variant. And I know that, I mean, even, so like here, you can see even subtle things like, just like light scratch marks on them, stuff that you would normally do maybe for like a creepy creature or something like that. Just doing subtle things like that for stylized characters, again, can definitely make them look more realistic. And then here's where you see the weathered variants. And I'm not sure if someone else kind of took what I did and then they added on the sweatiness to the characters here because they're like dripping in sweat.
Yeah, another variant.
Yeah. But yeah, this was pretty gross. It's like they're just like covered in sweat and like
man, sweat.
You can see the beautiful anatomy I model on Phil.
I know. I felt like you can just the way his nose it gets that highlight. That I know. I was looking at that, and even like look over there, seeing the neck tendons on Grug come out. The spec pass really makes it look a lot more intense. Yeah. So. That's all the things that I worked
sorry,
on.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
I was going to say, we
question?
actually had quite a few questions come up while you were sharing, Courtney.
I wasn't paying attention. It was
no, it's fine. You don't have to pay attention to that. And I think you guys did sort of address some of them conversationally. There's one interesting one that came in that probably is more for, I think, both you and Leticia, is that with each of your respective parts of the pipeline that you're working on, how long do each of you get with a character, typically?
Yeah, in modeling is very fluid because if you think about it, it's not like a straight line. Like you make a model, it's all great, you give to rig finishes, right? There's always that process where it's like you're working with concept, so you do a phase, you bring back to concept, and then go back to you. And then when you go to rig, same thing. You do some changes, go to rig, they test stuff, bring it back to you. So I couldn't say it per se like a timeline because while rig is testing something, I'm doing something else, right? I'm in a different task, doing something else, and then it comes back to me, and then I change it again, and then I do something else. So it could take, let's say, 4 months in the character, but you really only worked on it for a month, but it takes that time because there's this always check-in back and forward. but it's hard to say because you're never working on one thing all the time until the end, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the same for you, Courtney?
I thought, or the way that I felt was very different in that I feel like I just got, you know, a solid like week to, you know, really get into something and work on something. And on Croods, I didn't really feel super rushed to finish things. So I definitely felt prepared from Gnomon to be able to handle the workload that I was given. But I mean, like the same thing with Leticia said, you know, like you could, you know, do texture work and it gets approved. And then maybe somewhere along the way, someone's like, oh, we need to change that. And then it can kind of go back down the stream to you. So, you know, like sometimes your work is over and it gets put into the film and there's no issues, but sometimes, you know, it comes back to you. So I think generally speaking, I think I felt like I got about two weeks usually to do something, you know, like that character intensive. But I've also worked on environments where I've gotten a much longer time. So, and I mean, Ronnie can speak to the environment side of it because he did, you know, a lot of the environments on Croods.
Yeah. There's a good question here from Matthew. He asked, were those neck tendons shape keyed, or does the model have an internal musculature? And this is a funny question because this musculature here, which is called platysma, right? So when you do something like, I don't have it because I'm chubby, but if you do some things, you know, you see those tendons and that platysma emphasizing, and you have to have that at least in some animation. You have to have that on the topology. So I had to direct my topology that way instead of being perfect even. I had to have almost as like a cross, like you have the sternocleidomastoid coming this way, and you have the platysma going that way. And you have to have that topology there so rig can activate depending on the animation, right? So it was, I worked many hours on those necks to make them work.
Can you add like, are you neck artist? Can we add that to your?
I'm very specialized in neck.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you said activate, but also isolate because everything's so dramatically pushed and pulled in this. Like, yeah, they wanted to see it there to be able to get exactly what this little gag would give on the screen, you know?
Right. If you see a character like Grug, it's a big topology, like a variation, right? And all of that needs to be applied in the case of, you know, this movie on the topology. Yeah.
And how, Leticia, out of curiosity, how does that come to its final point? Is that a lot of communication between you and the riggers? Because obviously you're dealing with a smooth surface, so you've got to have the topology be ready to go. Are you going back and forth with them?
Yeah, I did 4 or 5 different topologies just for the neck.
Gotcha.
I was just working on the neck. I'll give it to them. They'll test it like, oh, this is good. This is not working. Then come back to me. I'll do it again. You know? Yeah. So if you need any neck modeling, just let me know.
Very passionate about neck modeling.
I'm very passionate about neck muscles.
Excellent. Well, we do have some more questions that come in, but I think some of these are going to be great ones, I think, after we've kind of finished for everybody to speak into. Okay. And I want to make sure that we're able to give you, Ronnie, the time that you need for your portion. So let's just continue.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think there was one quick question about the production designer before I get started with environments that I can't really speak too much of that, but I know with being at DreamWorks, you know, everybody wants to kind of fit that role of production designer, but it seems like it's a very difficult task. But I do think that starting with Gnomon and getting the concepts that I know a lot of those classes already start with, where they try to get you to flesh out your idea initially, I think that helps out drastically, and building your portfolio around that. I think the schools that I went to before that, it was just like jump right in. This is the assignment, but you know, Gnomon definitely fit the production value of that. Of let's think about it. You know what you're going to do before you start that task. So yeah, I appreciated that a lot. But yeah, so I'm definitely more of the environment realm artist here, so I can show you guys the environment aspect of this. I've been in love with environments for about 11 years now at DreamWorks, and I feel like this movie was my favorite because I felt like I couldn't make anything better than what I saw on the screen. So what we have here is the Betterment Treehouse, and this was a huge mass collaboration with modeling, basically to try to get this set up to be modular as possible to help have an efficient render at the end of the day for lighting and surfacing. But yeah, everything you're seeing here with the details added, it is basically our instancing tool that we use called Sprinkles, and allows us to be painters while we're set dressing. And so all of this moss, all the small flowers, all of the extra finite leafy detail is basically painted on there as actual models. And the trees, you know, they could be kind of instanced in the same way. But yeah, this is the approach between modeling and surfacing, is kind of kit bashing and setting up in a modular fashion. So yeah, and I think this is the still. Is there we have a video of this one. If play, yeah. So there's different side clips of this whole thing, and I know that there's only 1 or 2 shots. So it's the same thing as Courtney's situation, where you put so much effort and love into one section, you realize, wait a second, it's only really seen for 2 seconds in the film. So I knew something like that was going to happen on this. So I went all in, trying to make this full environment all in this kind of big working session that I kind of fell in love with, because I wanted it to be like my own resort. So I tried to put enough attention and detail into each area, hoping that it would show up in the movie, but there were only small sections. But I did get to finally walk away with just saying in dailies, well, I got a full 360 spin of it, and I will show you here. So we can go to the next. This is what modeling gave us, and this full on spectrum of what your real I guess paradise would look like without texturing. So yeah, base model, and just to show off exactly what is sprinkled as the instance approach in there, and more than anything, just to show all the depth of the actual model and the structure itself. So here's the full on thing, the full Betterment Treehouse. We see it a couple of times in the film, and this was basically the end-all be-all product. And the reason why I'm showing this frame is because this was basically kind of the same setup, the same capture of position of the tree in art. And they basically said, this is what it's going to look like. And immediately I was like, oh my God, this is going to take so long. And it did, but it was fun. It was very refreshing to see the end reward here. Here we go, Courtney's tree flies, and now, you know, showing off the grounds and stuff. This was definitely more the modular setup too, because it's basically bid out for them running across this pasture, but we didn't want to have this vast landscape and have it as expensive as possible when passing on down the line. So we had modules set up, different quadrants of the environment, where we would actually put all the detail, all of the sprinkled detail, all of this kind of grass curved detail, and kind of hero it up in sections, and hope that it would, you know, work out. And in this case, it did. So what you're seeing here is basically 4 different quadrants, and so the reason why it looks like it's so organic and it has like these little streams and ravines and looks natural is because how modeling actually kit bashed this whole thing to make it look like that and seamless, have it as seamless as possible. More like a puzzling piece, jigsaw puzzle here. And yeah, I heroed up every piece and I liked it. It worked well. So here's the full spin. And yeah, this was my first 360 spin at DreamWorks, and I think I need to do it more often. So
when I saw you do this, I was like, this is insane. I was like, oh my God.
Well, what was more insane to me is whenever the film was released, and I had excitement for a whole year of seeing this in VR, and something came out on YouTube where you could go and zoom into the environment. And I think I've never thought that I would want that ever as my art, as the end goal. But I loved it. It was incredible. Fascinating. Yeah. So here is a clip of the movie to show off Courtney and I's work here with a lot of the fruit, which was a lot of the stuff that Courtney did. I took care of all the grounds and a lot of the lush kind of landscape stuff, and trying to get as much detail on the screen as possible. You know, with these short clips, every frame was basically a concept. You know, Courtney's berries. Yeah, it was just too quick. You had to get in there. You see a concept, hope you can recreate it in the time given, but more than anything, just know what the intention was. You know, how fast you were seeing these clips. Was it worth going in and just spending a full day's worth of work, full week's worth of work, or a month or whatever? But yeah, it's good to know what the end goal is here. And then the next clip coming up will basically be kind of selling a little bit more of well, by the way, this was actually the drink or the Betterment compound, just in case this stuff comes up later on as looking up online. And there you go. There's the muscular tendons there coming out. Comes full circle. So yeah, and so this is basically an environment workflow submission that we created, and it's the small team's achievement and work through all of this. You know, so we kind of got through a lot on this, a lot of stumbling blocks, but also got through more than anything, just a crowning achievement, I feel, of a look that we were all pleased with. So the desert, once again, this compact ground, modular setup. Modeling would give us one little small hero element. There you go, puzzle piece together. And we'd start piecing together, kit bashing, and we would use the sprinkle instancer tool and start pushing it to the next level for detail.
And again, I want to give a shout out to Hannah Kang. She's also a Gnomon alumni, and she worked on a lot of this stuff on the betterments as well, on the modeling side. Yeah,
a lot of this treehouse for sure. Hannah, and that's another thing with the collaboration. I mean, even though something as simple as a leaf, that you're seeing here, it was still something where, it's seen this way and it's hero. So you have to open up the doors of collaboration with this stuff. And Hannah and I were trying to figure out what those UVs should really look like to make it, uphold the most resolution on screen whenever we, cut through it within the camera.
Right. It seems like there's some problem with the streaming on YouTube.
People are asking if it got suspended.
Oh, I don't think so. Let's. What I'm seeing is coming through, but that may be because we are on the platform right now. So we'll get some word from our Miranda, who's kind of doing some of the technical production for us. But okay, it looks.
That was it for the environment, so Adam. I mean, we can move forward with.
Yeah, no worries. And I can't tell if we're actually streaming still. So we might be live, we might not be live.
Someone was like, did DreamWorks just come in and copyright strike it?
That was created and submitted.
One of the things, oh good, where it says we're live now? Okay. All right, well let's just act as though we're live. I did have a question that came up, especially when we got to the environments, but sort of a running theme that I've been hearing in the design of the film and of the story is there's so much variety, right? Like the variety in the color palette. There's a lot of complexity. So I think particularly when it gets to environments, Ronnie, I know from a painting standpoint, the ways that you can use light and different things to create harmony. But when you're setting up an environment that's so incredibly complex, but you need it to be a space that in camera is not going to overwhelm the senses and you can still direct the eye. How are you making considerations for that when you're putting this kind of stuff together?
It was very difficult because you go through so many different iterations where you think what you know is right, and you go through that whole process and your artistic freedom and head, and multiple showings, you show it over and over and over, and then whenever you're basically following art, you want that vision to be depicted from that. And if people they keep leading you in different directions and new directions, you follow their lead, and ultimately that's exactly how this environment turned out, exactly like that, because there were 2 to at least 5 different versions on every one of these sets that I would create, where I thought, this is golden, that's final. And no, it would just be stripped and say, no, let's go this direction. So you have to be ready to change, and more than anything, not be ready to lock in and think that you do know what you're doing, because the beauty of it was just being agile and nimble with all this, and ultimately trusting your superiors and the art direction of the whole film. And it was easy to do that because we already loved the art department with that, and more than anything, just loved the story. The story was already incredible. When you have a story there at DreamWorks that you love, your art is going to come out on it too on screen.
Yeah. And another, I think you kind of alluded to this well, another sort of running theme that I'm hearing from each of you, of course, is like, you've got to be willing to kill your darlings, right? Something that you put your whole heart and soul into. I mean, I have someone who is not involved with the production that you're talking about, kind of a romantic notion that it's like, well, is that why these films are so amazing? Is that there's so much heart and soul put into something that's just in the background, or maybe didn't even make it in? Did Mousefant like influence other artists working on the film, right? That helped them, get excited about the project. Do you find that that's the case? All the energy that's being poured in, do you feel that energy sort of finds its way into having a general influence, even if it doesn't show up on screen?
100%.
Yeah. And when, like, especially for me, like being the beginning of the pipeline, being a modeler, every time I see what the department brings to it, and plus some things, it's just so exciting, and I think we all feed on each other that way, like just being stunned by everyone's work, and when you see something getting look with hair and all the fun stuff, and then you're like, oh, this is amazing. Then you see animation and lighting, and you're like, what the hell, So it's definitely sort of like greater than life contribution with everyone, that's like, you just had everyone's voices, but they're all very similar heights, I'll say, in a way. It's like that sort of feeling.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if this comes from experience, but I definitely know that Gnomon itself kind of teaches you this with already, knowing that you're working with a teacher that is already in production, and they're already telling you a lot of this stuff. But the reality and surfacing for us in look development, we're passing it on to lighting, and they're providing look development too. And a lot of these iterations that I'm talking about that I did, when I see it in lighting, I get back to my desk and I think, yeah, I'm changing that up. If it's going to look like that, I want it to look like that too. So, so you start putting in more finesse and more interest into it, because you are kind of holding hands with each other, trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And I think coming from Gnomon as well, one great thing that we were even talking about earlier is like, at Gnomon, even though I'm a modeler now, I was trained much more than that. I had lighting classes, I had texturing classes, animation classes. So it's funny because when you get to production, to any studio, you understand what everyone needs in a certain degree, and you know how to communicate, and that was so important to me to lower my anxiety, of like having to understand what's going on and how things work. But at least you have a very big idea of how things work, which I'm very thankful for that. And even now being a supervisor, like I interact way more in depth with other departments, and I know exactly how to speak with them because of it,
That's major too, is learning the language. It's like you don't really, you could jump on a show and you don't know that, but like the experience that you feel like you get from all the teachers at Gnomon, and that kind of experience that Leticia's talking about, if you're confident with speaking the language, a lot of this stuff it feels like it comes naturally at times.
And you can, I consider myself a generalist, so I can, suggest things here and there because I know how to say things and look for things. So yeah, it's been helping me a ton supervising stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, have you found that have there been times that you have, whether it was in a pinch or you just wanted to plus something up, that you stepped outside of your area of discipline? It was like, you know what, like I can handle this part of it. I'm gonna plus this up using this other knowledge that I know, so that as it goes further down the pipeline, it's either going to make somebody else's life easier, or it's going to be that much more inspirational to the rest of the project.
I think that to me, in just that sentence alone, it felt like my life on this project, because I knew people were going to make it better as long as we kept talking to them and iterating or whatnot. But my whole thing, at least revolving around Gnomon, is that when you get in production, you're not building a demo reel anymore. This is, if you go into working with this as an artist as just trying to one up or plus in that way and forgetting about everybody else, you won't see your work on the screen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think just understanding. I did the modeling and texture track at Gnomon, and so even though I'm doing look dev, or I'm doing surfacing, when I get like a model, and maybe it's like a really simple model, but so like I think one thing that would happen sometimes is you have maybe like 3 bolts, and they're all, the modeler thinks like, oh well, to make this easier for texturing, we'll put all 3 of the bolts on top of each other, but then because of art direction, they want the bolts all different colors or something like that. So then, if it's such a simple fix like that, and I know that the modelers, they're really busy, like they don't necessarily have the time to go back into the model and just do something as like move the UVs a little bit. Like I'm comfortable with doing UVs, so I can just do that myself, and then publish it out myself, and then it kind of saves a little bit of time for someone else.
Yeah,
and it's really simple. Yeah, Leticia's like, but then sometimes production tells you, they would like to have a, what is it called? They'd like to have a map of, where the model's been, or like who's touched it and stuff. So sometimes you're not really supposed to do it, but sometimes I just do it just to make it easier.
I like that. Yeah, exactly. Helping out.
Yeah.
So we have a few more questions to address. And one of the ones that just came in, it's more of a general question, but I think it's a great one just to hear each of you share from, is what is it that each of you like about doing stylized?
I don't know. Like for me, my brain works that way, stylized. Like when I try to do realistic, it always comes stylized somehow. It's just how I see the world in a way, But obviously, the big influences when I was a kid watching, Disney cartoons, Pixar, Warner Brothers, and all this stuff. They had such a big impact me growing up, that there's no other way than go to animation in my case. Yeah.
Courtney.
I guess I think for me at Gnomon, I remember everybody, you're all about like the like weird creatures, like Aaron Sims, like monsters and all that kind of stuff. And I definitely do really like that side of CG, but for some reason I just also gravitated towards stylized, and how I would see these concept arts of stylized characters that, what Leticia was talking about, where there's these certain shapes and these lines that just create like a form and just are appealing in a way that you don't always get maybe when doing like super realistic stuff. So I don't know, I'm just more drawn to stylized, I think, for me personally.
I'm the opposite of both of these ladies. I like happy accidents, and I like to try to create what I'm seeing in art, but sometimes I don't hit the stylized mark. But I feel like the happy accidents make me feel like there's still something more out of that creative potential that comes out of it. And whether the happy accident turns into stylized or becomes something that nobody expected, I think I love that more than just trying to follow some art.
Yeah, for sure. And then let's see, another one that came in. So, there's more of a Gnomon oriented question that came in. What were some of the best classes you took? Like, what were some of your favorite classes when you were going for Gnomon?
Shout out to Miguel.
Leticia's stylized character class.
All right.
She no longer
class. I'm
teaches.
not there. No, I did teach a Gnomon, a stylized class there. I started the program, and Gnomon gave me full space to create, like, what is your dream class? And I was like, okay. And then I made my dream class, stylized class, and I taught there for a while. But when I was a student, I think the classes that had the most impacts for me definitely were almost like the beginner classes, where you get the fundamentals, because those fundamentals are going to stay with you. And if you don't get them right, it's going to be a very hard path for you, So I love Max. He's my favorite teacher of all times. Andrea's class. Anyways, I'm not going to say names. No one knows, but they'll be stuck. But like the fundamentals class, like I would say the first year of Gnomon, they were so the base of everything for me, And then the next year of the program for me was just mainly like, all right, let's put all this stuff to work now, right? And then you start putting, and then you get more advanced classes and everything. But I always like to say to my students, like, if you don't have good fundamentals, you gotta go back and start over, So for me, Gnomon having those fundamentals so well done definitely was the base of my artistry, in a way. And also my last classes, which was demo reel class, because that's when you get to get all the stuff you learn and make your voice, right? For me, I was doing cartoon pieces that had my voice, that had my story. And that was like, it's your moment to kind of like, oh shit, yeah, I learned some stuff, and you see that through your demo reel, right? Class, which is basically you're making demo reel pieces, and your teacher is just helping guide you to the best solutions for your demo reel would be,
Yeah, visual communication from the beginning.
I definitely, I feel like this isn't really an answer to that question, but every single class, I think, like any class that you can take makes you just a better artist in every way. Like even like small things that you can take from certain classes. Of course, like you're so excited when you start Gnomon to like get into demo reel, because like that's when you just, like get to like do your own thing and like work on super cool pieces and have like, like Miguel to help you with everything. But I think what Leticia said, without those foundational skills, you're just kind of like flailing around and you don't know what you're doing at the end of when you're at demo reel. And I remember when I went to Gnomon, and I think it was like our orientation, and we had a couple other students that were graduating come, and they talked about how they said that, I think that same question was asked, like what classes are the best classes that they've had, and that student said the same thing. Is just, like you just have to be a sponge and just absorb as much as you can, and you don't know where down the line it'll help you, but like half the time it totally will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna say one more thing, Ronnie, sorry. Another thing that when I took other classes in other places comparing to Gnomon, is that at Gnomon, the teachers, they make you accountable of what you're doing. They don't treat you like pat you in the head and shit, They make you accountable for your progress. So they give you the best tools, the best class, but if you're not at home watching tutorials, researching, reading documentations of software and stuff, you're gonna be left behind, And that's one of the things that I loved about Gnomon is everyone gets that when they start at Gnomon, And as a class, almost as a group, we all kind of like support each other to move forward that way, you know, in a way, because we know it can't, and no one can be left behind. We kind of need to move forward. And that's something that other schools, they kind of patch you like, oh, you didn't do the homework, whatever. And at the end, that's not good for you, right? So that one thing that I think was the big thing for me was like that energy feelings, like this motion of the school is like, you got to keep moving with it or you're going to be left behind, and everyone goes with together, you know? So
that's how I feel too, is like the point I was making about the team structure. That's exactly, I just put myself right back into those labs, you know, just in my head just a minute ago. That's where I learned team collaboration, you know, at 10 o'clock, you know, everybody's staying until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning kind of thing. Everybody's getting the real production value right there. That's where I learned everything. I love the technical classes, but I think the only thing I can think off the top of my head that I felt like I learned the most off of, because I'm fascinated with the next level software, is ZBrush classes. Everything ZBrush related there, I fell in love with.
And but, Eric Heller, such an amazing teacher. Oh my God.
Yeah. Eric and Miguel.
Love you, Eric.
And Alex.
Oh no, please.
I was just also gonna say that also just, you know, that camaraderie and really getting to lean on your classmates was, you know, I really, when I started Gnomon, I didn't realize that these people I was gonna get so close to these people, and we were gonna be, you know, because you see them for like 14 hours a day that you're like at Gnomon doing your work, and you know, I feel like I credit the work that I did in demo reel, and you know, like even graduating maybe to, you know, having those people to lean on. And half the time, like, I'm not the smartest person at all. And half the time I was like, I would be like, how do you, you know, like, I wouldn't know how to do something. And then like my friend, like Kevin would come over and he'd be like, oh, like, why don't you just do it this way? And I'd be like, oh, like, why didn't I even think of that? Or, you know, like just having people to bounce stuff off of that are going through the same thing. And maybe they're taking different classes that they've learned stuff in, then you're learning stuff in, and being able to just like pick each other's brains like that. That Gnomon, like that camaraderie that happens is like such a strong, like foundational, team of people.
And you're like 14 hours with those people, and then I'll go home. My roommates, all from Gnomon. We all
like,
study.
I'm so sick of you.
Yeah, we all study stuff, and like, and then my husband, I met at Gnomon. So, yeah, Gnomon it's family. After you're done with it, it's family.
Family affair.
Well, one of the things I love about doing, you know, getting to be, you know, hosting these streams is I get to meet so many alumni from Gnomon, and I almost universally, the thing that constantly comes up in terms of feedback from our alums, everything you guys are saying, that sense of like, you're not going through it alone. It's really hard, it's intensive, but you've got this cohort of people that, you know, you're constantly collaborating and supporting each other, which, you know, incidentally develops all those soft skills you need to be a great person in studio as well, working with others. But I love that sense. And, you know, I wouldn't know how to compare to other art schools, but I love that fact, is that when we're on campus, you go into a digital lab, and there's, even if class isn't in session, there's just a group of students there, and they're all looking over each other's shoulders and working together. And I think it's wonderful. Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Awesome. The last thing I wanted to bring up from the questions, and I think it's kind of a great sort of parting word, if you will. Someone was just asking, you know, what recommendations do you have for an aspiring artist out there? And let's say that they're really inspired by a place like DreamWorks, and that's, you know, that's where they want to point themselves. That's, you know, quote unquote, the dream job. What kind of, you know, points of encouragement or wisdom or recommendations would you have for artists out there that are looking to move into that kind of a field?
Watch Gnomon DVDs. Keep in touch with your teachers at Gnomon. and send out many messages on LinkedIn to anybody that you think can give you a job. So
But be nice
That-
in the messages.
that's
Don't
the
be like,
Ronnie's
give
way
me
to
a
do it.
job.
I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I can't message people.
I think that,
I'll
I mean,
say,
there's a lot more to it, that obviously, but I think
Yeah.
the networking plays a lot into this. I feel
Yeah.
like I think if you're already inspired and Gnomon gives you that as well,
yeah,
it now more than ever during this pandemic, content is king. We all have jobs right now. We have the ability to all have jobs. So
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
keep reaching out whenever you feel that door is about to be open. Keep going for it.
yeah. I mean, I think what Ronnie said, like networking is so important. Like every single job I got was through someone I knew, from Gnomon or for a previous job. Another thing though, it's your portfolio, obviously, right? I would say on your portfolio, put stuff that speaks to you. Like if you someone like me, Courtney, Ronnie, but we all do stylize and stuff. It's like do what you want to be hired to do.
There you
Anyone
go.
else can say anything. Your mom, your teacher can say, put some cards or whatever you want in your reel. But at the end of the day, you put what you want to do, or else you're gonna be hired by someone to do something you don't like, right?
That's a perfect thing, because I guarantee you, I feel like my experience with looking at demo reels, the first thing I usually just go to is that, do you want that on there? Oh, I just kind of put it on there because I wanted it to do this, or I wanted it to say this, or it just wanted to be filler. Then you probably want to take it off. Yeah.
So like everything in your reel, like at least on my reel, it was very close to my heart, and like if anyone hired me for any of the pieces I did, I'll be happy doing the work, right? Another thing is obviously follow the companies you like on LinkedIn. See if they have openings. Sometimes people are like, Leticia, I'm looking for work. And I'm like, did you go to the website to check? So keep yourself, like if it is LinkedIn, or if you like to have a list of websites that you want to check, let's say weekly, when I was at Gnomon, I would have a list of websites that I was checking all the time to see if there's any opening, that is important. First, identify the places you would like to learn, sort of like you put in an A category, let's say like DreamWorks, Disney, Pixar. And then there's like a B category, like smaller studios or whatever. And then the C category is sort of like, I'm desperate, I need a job sort of thing. But you have to have all those plans, right? And you got to make your way, even if you get to a C studio on your C list, and then you move to a B, and then you go to A, some people, they're lucky enough to get out of school and go to a beautiful studio. Sometimes you got to go, and you get there the same way. It doesn't matter, right? What matters is the journey. But yeah, go Courtney. I talked enough.
I was one of those people that was just I applied for, so DreamWorks doesn't always have an apprenticeship position open, but they just happened to have it the fall after I graduated, and I applied, and I didn't even think I was going to get anything, and I got it, and then I rolled on to like a Croods and a full-on show and everything, and the apprenticeship position, so it was me and another apprentice named Bill, and his story is a little bit different, just because he kept applying to DreamWorks, and like they said, oh, like like maybe you need to like work on this a little bit more, and he just kept applying, and he just kept on like working at it, and DreamWorks saw that he was so diligent in wanting to get in, and that he was willing to put in the time and effort into them. And even when they were giving him feedback to like make his reel better, he was taking that feedback, totally doing what they asked, and then re-showing it to them. And that just kind of showed he's serious, and he was able to get that apprenticeship position eventually. So half the time it's just really showing that you really want it.
That's a great point, Courtney, because sometimes people keep applying the position with the same reel. Even it's very hard that you're gonna get hired. Like sometimes that can even be bad for you if you apply with the same rule, not adding anything new, because they're going to be like, okay, it passed 2, it passed 3, it passed 4 years, and this person's applying with the same rule, you know. So be careful about that. Like every time you apply for a big company, make sure you have new personal work, professional work to show that shows how much you grew from the last time you applied, or else you're going to get probably the same answers, you know.
It's a good one. Yep.
Yeah.
Spend more time finding solutions and not problems. Production tip right there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the stream tonight. Not only sharing about the work that you did, I think, but also just the camaraderie that you guys all bring together. I think that totally has come across, and just the way that you've been conversing. And I think that in and of itself is also really awesome. And I think definitely for people aspiring to this is very attractive to be a part of a team like that. So yeah, so thank you. And just want to say to our viewers, you know, if you're new to the Gnomon stream, you can come back on Wednesday. Will be our next stream. And that will be with Gnomon's Chief Creative Officer, Josh Herman. We do an art jam from about, well, I think lately it's been from 2 to 5 in the afternoon. That's been Josh Herman. And the Gnomon founder, Alex Alvarez, has also been joining Josh lately. So if you're looking for a great art hang, some inspiring stuff, come on back. But in the meantime, everybody, just continue to be safe, be creative. And once again, just thank you to Ronnie, Leticia, and to Courtney, and yeah, go find them on Instagram if you haven't already. Give them a follow, check out their work. Go watch Croods 2 now that you've sort of seen the creation behind the creation, and enjoy it all anew again. So thanks everybody. See you again soon.
Thank you, Gnomon.
Bye everyone.